Hi everybody. Welcome to our first video of the Excel series. We're looking at a 5-part series, kind of going over some of the basics of Excel, and then hopefully getting into a few more challenging concepts as we go along. I've started here with a data sheet that you will find in SAM, so you can download that if you want to follow along with me. Um, and this will be something we'll be doing, looking at and using throughout this time when we're discussing Excel. So for those of you who have used Excel, you're probably familiar with the value that Excel can add to your work world. You can use it if you want to create a budget, it's very helpful. You can use it as a database. Um, if you have to keep a list of names and numbers and contact information, it's very helpful that way. You can also use it if you want to create charts and graphs. So it's more about the charts and graphs and less about the actual data, but again, very valuable. So there are all kinds of uses for Excel, and it's one that if you're not familiar with it, hopefully it will be something that you'll use in the future. So we'll get ready to start. First of all, I just want to kind of talk about moving around in the Excel spreadsheet. So you can see up here in the menu bar, again, it's very similar to working in Word or PowerPoint if you've already worked in those. We have our file if we want to save, okay, so that's pretty straightforward. We have our home tab, and that's where we will be most of the time. That's where we do most of our formatting and basic functions. All right, again, then we get into insert. All right, if we want to insert something, some extras, especially like using a header or footer, any images, so on. Page layout, okay, so one thing with Excel, when you print it off, sometimes you do need to tweak a little bit, so um, that can be found under the page layout. Working with formulas, although that is a big part of Excel, lots of times when we're working in Excel, we only tend to use basic formulas, but there may be times down the road where you will need to get into more advanced formulas. So it's good to be familiar with where you might be able to find those. Data, okay, so again, that goes back to working with Excel as a database. And you can see over here, I'll just point you in this direction, that when you're working in the data sheet, you can also download from Access, and they can import and use a database from Access and create a spreadsheet from that. So that works out very well. Okay, again, a review. Okay, so when you're working on a team with Excel, if you need to send it on, um, you're not just working on it on your own. This is a helpful tab. And then the last one is view. So again, right now we're in normal view. We can see that. But then you also will probably end up working in both page break view and page layout view at some point in time. Okay, so page layout is important because it actually shows you what your printed document will look like. And again, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes when you're printing Excel, you think it's going to look a certain way when you print it. And this comes with experience. Once you kind of figure that out, you know how to get your columns and your row headings to repeat, how to get your grid lines up, how to make it so it's kind of centered on your page. That will all come. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the home tab right now, and I'm going to go now into the actual cells. Okay, so wherever the columns, so the columns have the letters at the top, okay, and they run up and down, they run vertically. Then the rows have the numbers and they will run horizontally. Okay, so whenever I'm referring to a column, I'm talking about where the letters are. Whenever I'm referring to a row, I'm talking about where the numbers are. And so the cell is where the two actually intersect. So I can see here, I clicked on the cell that had Q3 text in it. but it's actually called cell D4. Okay, so it's where column D and row 4 intersect. And within an Excel spreadsheet, this goes on and on. So we're seeing from A through to P, and we're seeing numbers 1 down to 22. But you can have millions of cells in a spreadsheet. So, you know, this is just a little snip of what Excel offers as far as the amount of data you can input. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll to the top just so we can see row 1. Okay, so there's row 1. I'm in cell A1 right there. Now, how can we move around the sheet? Well, you can arrow. Okay, so you can use your arrows on your keyboard. That's one way to move around. You can also use your enter key. So right now I'm doing a combination of arrows and enter. Okay. And if you want to go in and let's say you want to change some data within a spreadsheet, there are a couple ways you can do this. One, you can go up to your formula bar. Okay, so I can click right in there. You can see that the cursor is inside of the formula bar. So that means it's ready to change the data. Okay, so I could highlight that and type over it. I could use my delete or my backspace and change it that way as well. Okay, another thing I want to point out is that when I am in this static stage that I am right now. So meaning I'm inside the cell, the cursor is waiting for data. You'll notice that all these commands kind of grayed out. All right. So they're not, we're not able to access those commands right now because Excel is waiting for us to change the data or input data. So just kind of keep that in mind. Sometimes students find that a little alarming that everything goes gray. Why is everything gray? Why can't I do something? And they don't notice that the cursor is inside a cell blinking away. Okay. So if that happens, just hit enter and now the cursor is no longer in the cell. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is the data that I downloaded from Sam. Okay, so I'm just going to move over here and just kind of show you how I entered that data. And it's pretty straightforward. So I'm just kind of replicate what we've got over here. So I am typing in the same data that's in B5. I'm doing it again in H5 and I'm going to go enter and you'll see that um, automatically just updates. So entering the data is pretty easy. Okay, now one thing that you don't want to do is if I show you an image of what I want you to create in a spreadsheet for an assignment, and then you just go in and enter all the data. You have to be able to figure out what is data that is entered and what is data that's based on formulas. Okay, so you might say, well, what do you mean based on formulas? So I'm just going to delete this. And when you select an entire cell and just hit delete, it's gone. But based on formulas, I mean, so I'm going to click in under total here. Okay, I'm going to go equals sum. I'm going to go open bracket. Now I'm going to select all these cells because I want to add these. And I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so now I'll click back on that cell. That is based on a formula, okay? We didn't just enter that in. That is the result of adding all of these numbers in row 5. We're adding all those numbers and we're creating our own answer, okay? And when I click on it, I can see up here it says equals sum B5 equals through to E5. All right, so I know it's based on a formula. So when I am correcting your work, I look to see, okay, did they enter the right data? Okay. But then where there should be actual answers based on formulas, I'll look for that as well. And then I can tell, like, if I click on cell E5, that is just data, up in the formula bar, it's just data, okay? In F5, that's based on a formula, it has the answer here, but the formula is up here. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's important that you know the difference. Okay, the other thing that I'm going to show you right now is doing a little bit of formatting. And again, the formatting is fairly straightforward. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to bring up the practice spreadsheet that I want you to do. So this is what I want your spreadsheet to look like. All right, so you can see we have some bold, we have some dollar signs, we have a total row, and then I'm just going to scroll down. Okay, so now we have a chart as well. So by the time we're done going through our different Excel videos, we will have all of that created. So, but I'm going to minimize it right now. So we know what it is that we have to do. So I'm going to minimize, I'm going to go back to our spreadsheet. And let's start with just some of the basics. So I'm going to bold. Okay, I'm going to bold through here. All right. And I think I'm going to bold down through here. Okay. So bold and bold. Okay. So let's just check. Is that what we want to do? Yeah. So we have bold here, bold over here. Now we'll notice that the title of our spreadsheet is kind of centered. So how are we going to do that? Okay. So I'm going to just minimize that. I'm going to go up to the title and I'm going to kind of select straight across to column F. So I have selected A1 through to F1. And now I want to click on merge and center. All right. Now I'm doing these separately. Okay. I can't do two lines at once or it will delete some information. So I go to merge and center. And there we go. Do it one more time. There we go. So merge and center, I'm going to click on the bold. And I'm probably going to increase the font size. So right now it's size 10. So maybe I want to go to size 20. Okay. I'm going to go now to my next row. So I'm on A2. I'm going to select again from A2 through to F2. It's important that you kind of keep it all symmetrical. Again, I'm going to go to merge and center. And now I'm going to increase the font size again. So there we go. Okay, so one thing that students will often do when they're supposed to merge and center, they might be tempted to go, oh, I'll just center it, okay? I won't do the merge and center. If you just hit center, all that does, and I'll just show you right here, all that does is center within the column, okay? It doesn't center it across. You have to select and then go merge and center. Okay, so let's now just take a look back at our PDF. So I think we've done most of our formatting for right now. Pretty straightforward. Again, if we want to, I'm just going to move this back to the way it was. So I'm going to left align it. If we want to add color, we can do that, of course, right here. All right, so we can change our font color. We can also add fill to some of our cells if that's what we want to do. And I will show you down the road how we can create a table using Excel.